Hello everybody! So I would like to start a new series here on our YouTube channel about my books actually. If you know me and have been reading some of the things I've been posting on our website over the years, I had a blog for a while, things on Twitter. I actually use what I call the 1 hour character worksheet. I go through each character in my story, spend about an hour going through one of these worksheets. It has the details of each character that I use in my story, the main characters, ones that I kind of dig a little bit deeper into, and honestly, a lot of times these characters, some of the things about them, you never actually really see even in the story itself. So they're kind of all background things that I do as the author that bring the story and depth to the characters. So funny thing about the first story, Pycroft Particle, that I wrote, it's a Christian sci-fi story exploring the idea of teleporting, where it's about the first group of scientists who've discovered teleporting, and their leader is a female named Dr. Patricia Pycroft. Now, the funny thing is, when I first wrote the story, the character's name was actually Lily. That was the name that I came up with first. And the idea for it was that Lee kind of is related to nocturnal, so more of like a creature of the night. So I, of course, after my wife read through it and ended up saving one of the other characters. I don't want to give any spoilers here, but she read through it and just kind of after some talks and everything, it's like, I think it would be better to do a little bit of alliteration with the name. The Patricia Pycroft sounded a little bit better, and as I got used to it and reading through it, just hearing people's comments and stuff about it, it's a little bit easier to use more familiar names sometimes, especially since it was more of a modern setting than a fantasy one, which my other series is. So I chose Patricia Pycroft. Then shortly after some of the edits, I go through their age, gender, location. So she's 28, a female from a city, kind of like Chicago. It kind of ended up becoming more like the Twin Cities as I was writing it, just because we lived there for a while, so it became familiar. I always come up with a theme song for my characters too, and for Patricia's it was Blinded with Science. She blinded me with science, just because that's fun. And to describe her in one word is to be dedicated. She's very dedicated to her job. She's very dedicated to what she has to do. And even though her job kind of starts to take a little bit precedence over her marriage, she's still dedicated to her husband very much. And that's not a spoiler. I do mention that kind of in the first or second chapter, so it's pretty early in the story you find that, so don't worry, that's not a big spoiler or anything like that. I have on my character sheets the Myers-Briggs personality type. I don't actually go through those with my characters just because I haven't done enough with that to really know what would be the best descriptor and stuff of that, or how to describe them through that, if they're an ENFJ, anything like that. I don't know. I didn't actually study enough to really go into that. I do mention like all the things that her the appearance, body type, tall and slender, bony features, eyes green, thinned eyebrows. I don't think I mentioned her eyebrows in the story because that wasn't necessary. She has brown shoulder length straight hair. I think I actually ended up making her hair a little bit longer in the story because she ties it back in some places. Her face, one thing that I like to add when I'm going through these two is to add descriptions that I can kind of use in the story. So with her face, I say it's thin, long. She has a large smile that fills her face when she smiles. So I don't think I actually ended up using that in the story either. It was probably just a little added thing. I know I gave her a slight Texan accent, which I don't think I've ended up coming through either in the story. I had enough accents going on in the story. Throwing in another one would just be a little too much for the story itself, so I ended up leaving that out a little bit. Her posture is that she stands straight and likes to put her hands on her hips. I think I did mention that I try to add little gestures and stuff like that, or little character tics and stuff about my main characters in each of my stories, at least the main ones that I fill out a paper for and everything. So she has a smell that's very sanitized, like cherry smells. I remember a time when our house, when I was growing up, we lived in the country, and our house had gotten a kind of a stove fire. It was more just smoke. One of the pans caught on fire for a while and just smoked up the whole house, and so there was smoke everywhere. And so this cleaning company came in and sprayed this clean cherry scent that ended up being almost worse smelling than the smoke. But that's kind of what I was thinking, just kind of like a very sanitized, kind of artificial scent that she has about her. I go through the different style of clothes that I talk about in the story, so I'm not going to go too much on that. Her wedding ring is her prized possession. Then I talk about the mannerisms, gestures, quirks, things like that. So some of these I put in there, some of them I didn't. She kind of has a lanky walk. She squints when she smiles. I don't think I put that in there either. Then she has the things that she would describe as her best and worst features. Her best feature would be her hair and how her smile kind of lights her eyes, and the worst feature is that she doesn't like her nose. I don't know. Kind of said stuff like that about her. I go into kind of some of their parents in this too, about her parents' background, that they're Southern. Mom's a teacher, dad's an engineer. She really pushed hard to succeed in school as a child, and she smelled smarter than the other classmates, and she was a bit of an outcast, but well liked. So she, everybody liked her. She was smarter, but she was still kind of in her own group. And their current marital status is that at the beginning of the book, of course, I will leave that as an attention spoiler. Maybe she's not. I don't know. She's married to Jordan and dedicated to him, and tries to make time for him, which may or may not work out so well. Her occupation is that she is the overseer of the teleport project, and developed ways to save energy, and is a great leader. So she's not only working on this project, she's also very minded of the future for energy conservation, things like that. Her hobbies would be the latest discoveries in science, and she likes to collect books that are signed by other scientists or colleagues in the field as well. She's extremely skilled at engineering machines to run more efficiently and produce energy. And her best friend is, I first named him Nasir, but then I changed his name later to Rashad Hamad. That's her best friend, and you see their interactions a lot through the story. I do have a page on him as well, but I won't go through that. I need to change it to Dr. Rashad, which all their names have meanings. If you dig deep enough into the names of my characters, you'll find that a lot of times it gives a little bit of a foreshadowing of their role in the story. So it's something that I like to do. I don't just pick like a Dave or a Bill or John or Mark or Matt, in my stories. I try to find something that relates to their story arc as far as their names. So it's just kind of a fun little thing I like to do. Maybe some of you have picked up on that. I will give a little hint that the name LaBelle was actually a bit of a wordplay where I rearranged the letters of the word Belial. So that's all I'll put about that. So I'll leave it at that. Let you look up the things about what Belial means and how that relates to Mr. LaBelle, who is the director of LaBelle Industries, LaBelle Tech. I've been working on some other stories, so sometimes these other stories kind of get mished around. Like, wait, where are we at in the story? We're already 100 years in the future. I don't know, or 2,000 years in the past. Currently, about there. So I have her nemesis is of course the kind of the since she is the main character, it's the main antagonist in the story, which would be the director, or becomes Veronica, which you'll find out in the story as well. She has a desire and dream to lead the way to a new renewable energy and to have a sustainable and free transportation, which is the whole goal of having this teleporter, is that it becomes a not really an energy draining thing, but that it's something that can be self-sustained and allow transportation that doesn't use fossil fuels, things like that. So, and it works. It's no spoiler. Okay. She has nightmares and regrets, of course, of a nuclear meltdown. They are working with something that is highly unknown. They don't know much about the particle, and they don't really know much about it. They won't for a while. So it just kind of becomes this thing that that they're not really sure about what it's doing exactly and what it does. So a lot of their tests are theoretical, and just kind of, well, let's put it in and see what happens. She does have a fear of not spending enough time with her husband and having too many secrets between them, because of course it is a very secretive project that she's working on. She can't spill it out to anybody. Signs disclosure agreements, all kinds of things like that. That's very secretive, and so because of that, it puts strain on pretty much everyone she knows. If anybody asks, "Hey, what do you do?" "Oh, well, I'm a lead scientist at a place. I cannot tell you more." So if I tell you, I'll have to kill you, or they'll kill me. One of the two. So she has a dirty little secret, and I don't know if I actually ended up putting this in there too much. It is kind of a subliminal thing in there, but she does have kind of a way of how she kind of flirted up her way up to become a manager a little bit. I think I actually ended up just scrapping that idea altogether. It just became not too surface. It's like, yeah, that's not how she would actually work once I kind of got into her character a little bit more. Again, a lot of this is I do these character worksheets kind of at the same time that I'm doing the outline of my story. So a lot of times I will have this kind of as a framework of where they start, and throughout the story as it's going through it, they kind of just take on a life of their own, and their characters change quite a lot, like their names change. So I have her as her spiritual beliefs or superstitions is that she hopes for the good in all people. That's kind of what she believes in. And she's very much a seeker for truth. She wants to figure out what's going on. She's very fact driven, very very open though. She's interested in different types of beliefs and things like that. Like her friends have a very wide spectrum of what they believe, superstitions, things like that. So she's open to that. The best thing that's happened to her is, of course, her marriage to Jordan, is the happiest day of her life. And then discovering how to teleport matter on a large scale. That was probably the next biggest thing other than her marriage. Her marriage is very important to her. Second thing would be discovering the particle that she named after herself. The worst thing was having to move to the city away from her parents and other family. That's another just little side thing that I don't mention in the story at all. So there you go. It's a little bit about them. I do go through and kind of I can kind of zoom up a little bit on this here. So it kind of goes into the a list of things that kind of I put it on a scale, like, if they're loner, popular, introverted, extroverted, healthy, unhealthy, day or night person. Of course, her name originally was Nocturnal, so she was more of a night person, and she does end up working very late at the lab. Mornings are not her thing without ample amounts of coffee, which I may have taken from myself. I need lots of coffee. Simple, intelligent, 9 on the intelligent list. Uncertain, confident. I actually take out the 1s and the 10s on here. I just rate it on a scale from 2 to 9 because there's nobody that's going to be a 1 and a 10, because that's impossible. And then I kind of go through the different. One thing that I do know, don't know the Myers-Briggs, but I do know the D&D alignments. So she's definitely a neutral good, and her learning type is very visual. She likes to see things. That's kind of how she learns, how she teaches, is by a very visual learner. She wants to see the results, and likes diagrams. So her humor is witty. It's not really dark or sarcastic or anything like that. She's just very witty. She enjoys witty humor. Her vice is pride, and her virtues would be that she's diligent, which goes back to her one word is dedicated, and she's kind. She's very driven, but she's also very kind to the people that she works with. She has kind of been through a lot, so she knows how to relate to her colleagues and the people that she's in charge of, because she is the project coordinator and leader of the group. Her mood is that she's very focused, very driven, and pleasant, but will lose interest if not important to her inner mind. So if she'll stay with it, but if it's not interesting to her, she'll move on to something else. Her sanctuary is, let's see, and actually I don't think I actually talked about this at all. Study at home is full of science books, awards on the walls, scattered schematics. However, it ended up being her sanctuary was more of her, the lab that she worked at became her sanctuary, and when I was actually writing this story. And then I go through and do, which I think are some of the most important things to know about your character when you're writing about them, when you're trying to get to the mindset of your character and how they react in the story, and that's their impressions. So first impression of kind of what you would see first is that she's fun to talk to, but not sure if I would have any time to get to know her. Like she's fun to talk to, but she's just in and out, and she's just very focused, very driven, doesn't have much time for anyone. So then her stranger impressions is that she's I say a man eater. She'll get things done her way and pull the people along that she needs. So we've been going through the episodes of Doctor Who and stuff again, and the recent ones, and it's kind of like the way that they describe him, where he's he kind of drags people along with him as he goes through, and in a sense it almost looks like he uses them. She's kind of has that same feel for strangers, is that she just kind of pulls people along and people follow her. Friendly impressions, though, people that have become friends with her, is that she's someone bold to follow. She has a magnetic personality and brings out the best in others, so she really strives to make people achieve their full potential. Her enemy impressions is that she's too strong-willed and not willing to take risks or do something against her ethics, so she's very stuck in her ways and isn't going to break out of it. And then her family sees her as successful and strong, and she accomplishes what she sets out to do. And then her self-impressions, kind of what she thinks of herself, is that she's pulled in too many directions. Hope she is doing what is right, concerned for those she cares about. So she's hoping she's doing what's right, and she's concerned about others. As I kind of get near the end of this list here, I have to read ahead a little bit because some of these are major spoilers to the story, so I don't want to go too much into them. But the two of her strengths would be that she's very positive. She sees the best in others and things, and she's a problem solver. She fixes issues as they arise and finds better ways to do it. Her two weaknesses would be her self-confidence, and she relies too much on herself, tries to do it all herself, and she's work-driven, which is sometimes puts the job in ahead of the others. And the significance of the character in the story, that she, of course, is the main character, and I mentioned she's the one that we have feels for and figures out what's happening. So that's the one that you guys need to relate to her, because if you don't, I need to come up with a better character. So the primary and secondary objective is to perfect the teleport machine for commercial use, and secondary objective is to find a new renewable energy source. And then how they grow is that's their story arc, so I'm not going to say that. She grows, or she doesn't. I don't know. She could say the same. You never know. It could be one of those stories. Her catchphrases and signature quotes. I don't think I actually used these specific things in here. I think other people may have used them a little bit, and she kind of went along with it. Where her thing would be that we can do it, or this will change the world. And I put in the Seinfeld description. I don't know if you're familiar with the show Seinfeld, but they always have their descriptions of people, like a close talker, a close talker, a short walker, things like that. So I say that she's a tall Texan with a toothy smile, and then I have some other things. So that's basically the main character, Patricia, not Lily, Patricia Pycroft in a nutshell. If you are interested in learning more about her and how she grows in her story, you can check out the story. Actually, it's called The Pycroft Particle. It's available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all kinds of places. Basically any book distributor should be able to have a copy of it. You can get it on Amazon, though. It'd probably be the easiest if you go to Amazon. If you do have a copy of it, you've read it already, you enjoyed the story, and just want to know a little bit more about the characters, I'll be doing some more of the characters. I might talk a little bit about the side characters in a little bit, like Carlos and Veronica. I have her as well, and Rashad, things like that. Jordan, her husband. So if you subscribe, I'll be posting some of those videos here. If you don't want to read the story itself and enjoy what happens to Patricia Pycroft as she is trying to balance her work and family life by developing a teleporting machine that is not only commercially available but is also creating a renewable energy source. You can find that on Amazon. Just search for the Pycroft Particle, or you can search for my name, Matthew E, the middle initial, make sure you put that in there, Nordine, and it will show up there on the list of my books that I have, as well as all my other stories. I have just completed book 1 of the Pycroft Continuum, which follows the story of what happens afterwards. If you read the prologue and epilogue, which you should do in my stories because they give hints to other stories, it follows what happens after the epilogue. So it's available as well on Amazon. It's only on Kindle right now. I am working on getting all 10 of those stories, I think is what it's going to be, somewhere around the 10ish mark, the stories that will follow the Pycroft Continuum, and those will be available in paperback once I get them all done and put together, so they will follow the events of the Pycroft Particle. That'll be the Pycroft Continuum, and then things start to get really fun. So I'm working right now on book number 2 of the Shadows of Eleanor series, which is also available on Amazon. You can check out book 1, Hollows of the Nox, which is available now for purchase. And if you have read Pycroft Particle or any of my other books, I would love a review on Amazon. Those are great. They always help people to see, oh, hey, maybe I should check out this book. So, hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you enjoy these little character snippets behind the scenes of my books that I am writing. I will do a few more, and thank you so much for watching.